This video is going to be about ergogenic aids in sport. Ergogenic aids are now massively growing in the business industry, with elite and non-elite athletes using them. This is down to the key point in that they help to improve performance. This could be small things like a millisecond in sprinting races, but for this it could be the difference between first and fourth place when running. Although these should be used at your own risk, as some ergogenic aids are in fact illegal and can have some major effects on career if they are used illegally, as they are breaking the rules. Although there are also lots of positive aids that can be used that are completely legal and, if used properly, can really be beneficial for the users. This could be things like music for relaxing before events, or caffeine that can be used by anyone and doesn't affect health, although it has to be used in certain amounts, if you go above an amount, it's illegal. There are 4 key organisations that are within sport to help keep illegal ergogenic aids out of competitions. So the first one is WADA, so this stands for the World Anti-Doping Agency. Their role is to create policies and regulations within sport and organisations and the government right across the world. They will make lists of drugs that are illegal to use in events at elite levels and will conduct testing in athletes. The next one is the IOC, and they are the International Olympic Committee. They promote fair play within the Olympics and help to regulate these types of ergogenic aids that can be used in the Olympics. They will also help to run the drug testing within the Olympics. UK Sport, they have a programme called 100% Me, where their role is to promote hard work within building up your performance rather than using illegal ergogenic aids, and that you can get the same result if you just work hard. They do this through all levels of sport and have educated over 15,000 children in the legality and ethics of ergogenic aids. An example of an NGB for my sport, for swimming, is British Swimming, and their aim is working in partnership with the UK Anti-Doping Agency to help ensure that sport is protected from doping, and the athletes have the right to compete against other clean athletes. So there are 5 main groups for ergogenic aids, or like categories. These are pharmaceutical, physiological, mechanical, psychological, and nutritional. These cover all the different ergogenic aids that can be used by athletes, elite and non-elite. You'll be able to use the majority of the aids to benefit your performance, as they can be legal within sport, so it's able to help you to improve your sport without breaking the law. Although a lot of these can also be illegal, especially within the pharmaceutical aid, as this category contains the most illegal aids due to the drug side of the aid, where a lot of them aren't allowed in sports at all under all regulations. The first category I'll be talking about is pharmaceutical. An example of a pharmaceutical aid would be anabolic steroids. So these are used to mimic the natural production of hormones that are naturally produced in the body. They're similar to the male hormone testosterone and can be used to help improve endurance and performance and stimulate muscle growth. They are in fact illegal to be used and are banned in most major sports, although they can be legally available only by prescription, because they are prescribed to treat a variety of conditions. But in sport, in January 2005, the Anabolic Steroid Control Act was amended to control the substance. People who use it mostly use for events that are needed to increase the amount of power and strength, therefore links to things like a heptathlon, as the majority of their events will use power, for example the 100-metre sprint, the high jump and shot put. And an example of an athlete that used anabolic steroids is Dwayne Chambers, who was a GB medalist that then got stripped of his medals and banned from sports because he was found to be using anabolic steroids. The positives of the steroids and why they're used is because they help the body to metabolize and ingest proteins quicker, and this facilitates for the synthesis of the skeletal muscle, meaning it can grow quicker and increase muscle mass. They also delay fatigue, which allows the athlete to train for longer, so are able to build their muscle as they can train for longer. Although they're illegal, they would be helpful to athletes as it they wouldn't be helpful to athletes as it could ruin their career if they're found to have the substance in their system. The negatives are that although there have been studies to show that steroids can increase the size of muscle mass, it actually just makes the muscle look bigger rather than improving the power and strength in the muscle. This is due to the fact that it builds up muscle with water rather than muscle fibers. There are also lots of damaging health issues that could come with taking steroids. These include roid rage, high blood pressure and heart attacks. In males it can cause infertility, also in females, and it can cause females to get a deeper voice and increase body hair as it includes a lot of testosterone. The next physiological is EPO, which is erythropoietin. It's a hormone naturally produced by the kidneys. However, this hormone can be artificially produced and then ingested to improve performance. Erythropoietin promotes the formation of red blood cells, which then makes the body more efficient at supplying the muscles with oxygen, and can also increase the body's capacity to buffer lactic acid, therefore allowing the athlete to work for longer. It's illegal to use EPO as an elite athlete and will be serious consequences or bans if you're found to be competing with EPO in your system. There are lots of tests that can allow you to detect the amount of EPO in the body, but there are always ways around it, so it's a constant battle between the cheats and those who try to catch out the cheats. Tests have shown that improvements in athletes' performance over 4 weeks would match those who expected over several years. This is why a lot of athletes choose to use it. Its overall effect is to increase endurance, so it's used mainly by long-distance runners or cyclists, so it might not be beneficial to the heptathlete athlete as their longest distance event is 800 meters, so it'd be beneficial but probably not worth it, as it'd be better for something like a marathon runner. An example of someone who's used it is Justin Gatlin, who was an Olympic athlete who was found using EPO, so had his medals stripped from him. The positive effects of it is that it does increase the blood cells' ability to carry oxygen, but obviously the negative effects are that it is illegal and it can cause health complications to do with the cardiovascular system. The next mechanical aid is altitude training. So this is where athletes train at around 2,400 meters and above, as oxygen has a reduced partial pressure, therefore making the blood cells have a higher affinity for oxygen to get it into the body. So this then causes more EPO to be produced. So when the body is back to normal altitude, it can take in larger amounts of oxygen. So this is an example of a legal legal option to taking EPO, as it involves athletes doing training at a normal standard rather than having an aid like EPO to help them. So how you can do it is by going up to mountains and training, or there are special living conditions at a normal sea level that can be created where athletes live in these high altitude conditions. Or you can use things like altitude masks when training at sea level, which will do the same thing and create a condition of high altitude. The people that were most likely to use this are long distance athletes like runners and cyclists, as they will need the most oxygen capacity within them. So the positives are that it takes longer for them to fatigue, as the body is able to capacitate more oxygen, so the muscles are able to work for longer with more oxygen being supplied to them. Although the negatives of this is obviously the main thing being altitude sickness, which can be quite fatal if it's not recognised, as it can be dismissed as dehydration. And there are cases where people just don't respond to the training and their body doesn't produce more EPO. The next mechanical aid is pre-cooling. So this is cooling the core body temperature before an event, and to help with performance by keeping the temperature lower, therefore the muscles working at a more optimum temperature. This is legal to use in events, although different methods of it aren't necessarily very available over others. For example, things like full body submission in ice cold water is obviously not very transportable or easy to use at the start of a race, whereas something like pre-cooling shorts and a jacket or an ice slurry is quite easy to use before. People who use it are athletes that do long distance events. It's mostly seen in running and cycling. The positive effects of it is that it does lower the core body temperature, and studies have been done to show this, and therefore makes exercising a lot easier. The negative effects of it, as mentioned before, are that some of the methods aren't very accessible, so can't always be used before events. The next physiological one is meditation. So this is relaxing the mind and body before an event to compose yourself and get in the mindset of competing. Obviously, the availability of it is it can be used by anyone, anywhere, if you can get yourself to like a quiet space just to do before, and of course is legal in all sports. A lot of athletes might use this if they have events like say darts or snooker, where their body is under a lot of pressure to be like keep stability, and they don't want to be shaking or that kind of thing when they're throwing a dart or potting a ball. So the positive effects of meditation is that it can calm the body and get you into that mindset if you're able to meditate properly, because the negative effects are that people can sometimes find it hard to meditate, as they just can't get their body into that mindset of calming down before an event, as their adrenaline is going and they're more excited about doing the event and their arousal levels are higher, so meditation can be quite tricky for some people. The last one is nutritional, so this includes supplements like pre-workout. So pre-workout is used before training as a supplement to help the athletes work for longer and harder. It's available in lots of shops and can be bought online. It's also legal in all sports. People who use it could be athletes like weightlifters, as they would want to train in the gym for longer and harder to help build the muscle mass. The positive effects of it is that it is shown to help, as it includes things like caffeine and creatine, which can be helped to obviously make them want to work for longer if their body is more awake. The negative effects of it is that some don't have any effect at all on the body, and some can be overused, so people become more dependent on the pre-workout and it doesn't necessarily benefit them as much in any way at all, rather than just exercising by itself.